G'day and welcome to another video with Better Pics. Hope this finds you all well. Today we're going to look at the various options for importing images into Lightroom. Now, this might seem like a fairly straightforward and easy process, but there are a few options depending on where you're importing your images from and depending on what you want Lightroom to do. So there's just a couple of options, as I mentioned, that are worth remembering and keeping in mind when you do your next import, because you could potentially be saving yourself a bit of time, but also, as I mentioned, worth considering depending on where and how you are importing your images from. Alright, so there's two main places that you can import your images from with Lightroom. It's either directly from a memory card that's come out of your camera and you're importing the images into Lightroom, or it's from images that you've already transferred from your memory card to your computer and you're importing them into Lightroom from the hard drive or your storage area, whether it's internal on your computer or external or whatever it may be. Where it's stored is probably of less importance for this video. It's more that you've already transferred them across to some sort of storage device. Now at the moment you can see I am in Lightroom and I'm in the import dialog box, and if we have a look over on the left hand side, we are pointing Lightroom to a hard drive that contains all of the raw images that I generally use for Better Pics videos. And you can see up the top there, there's four options. Copy as DNG, copy, move and add. So the wonderful thing about these four options is there's a little description underneath each of them that helps us to understand exactly what's going on. So if we look at the first one, copy as DNG, you can see it says copy to a new location, import and convert to DNG. So there's three things that are happening there. We're copying them from one area on our storage system to another area. We're importing them into Lightroom, and we're converting them to a DNG, which is a digital negative. Now, I've done a previous video on converting your raw files to DNG and the benefits there. I'll link that video below. But the main reason, just briefly, that you would want to convert to DNG is that it's a little bit more of an open system. So it's a little bit more future-proof. Rather than having your images stored as the proprietary raw format, DNG can be pretty much read by anything, and it's an open format, so definitely worth considering. The next option along is to copy, and that simply means to copy your photos to a new location and add to the catalog. So it means to import them into Lightroom, adding them to the catalog, but also copying them to a new location as well, so you may have a separate or different copy. The third option there is to move. So move your photos to a new location and add to the catalog. So add to the catalog always refers to importing them into Lightroom, but it also means that you may want to move the photos from one location to another. So it may be a newer storage system or a different storage system, but the important thing is that you're not copying them, you're picking them up and moving them. So the original location that the images were stored, they will no longer be there as you're moving them. Kind of like if you move house, so you take all your stuff from the old house and move it to the new one. And the last one is to simply add the photos to the catalog without moving them. So this is the most common import method that I use, because I have a separate process for storing all of my digital assets, and it just means that you're adding the photos to the catalog, whatever catalog it may be, within Lightroom. So it's making them accessible for use within Lightroom. So that's the fourth option, and as I mentioned, it's the one that I use, but it's different for everyone. Now, those four options that I've just discussed, remember, are based on the images already being stored in your storage system, be that an internal, external hard drive, a RAID system, whatever it may be. So that's if you've already copied them from your memory card and you have them safely stored onto your storage system. Now, if we go back to copy as DNG, if we have a look over on the right hand side here, you can see there's also some options for file handling, file renaming, apply during import and destination. Now, the reason it's asking for those file handling is, are we wanting to look at these options, build smart previews, make a second copy too. There's a bunch of options there that we consider while we're copying and converting them to a DNG. The file renaming is pretty self-explanatory. You can rename the files to a specific naming convention. I've talked about naming conventions in the past in workflow. However, I will have a new video coming up shortly for that one as well. Apply during import, you can apply develop settings, so a preset develop settings to your images as you're importing them. This may be if you've got a fast workaround. An example might be that you are doing some headshots, for a corporate client, and you want to apply some develop settings so that you're able to quickly deliver those images to the client. You can also apply metadata as well as keywords there. Which is a great option to speed up your delivery workflow. And destination allows you to decide exactly where you want those files to go to. Remember, we're copying them from one location to another. So you can see that the drop-down box there, we've got all of our folders available to then decide exactly where we want to copy them to. If we move across to copy, you can see that the options are exactly the same. The only difference is that that first option is going to copy and convert to a DNG. Second option is purely just copy. If we look at move, again, it's giving us all of those options. And if we look at add, it's only giving us the file handling and apply during import. And that's because we're not moving them to a different location. So we don't want to apply any presets or decide on, there's no moving of the files to a different destination. Alright, so you can see those 4 different options that are available for importing images into Lightroom. So copy as DNG, copy, move and add, as well as those options on the right hand side for handling, renaming, presets that you can apply and destination, depending on which options you use while we're importing the images at the top there. Now the second option is if you're importing images directly from a memory card. Now I have a memory card plugged in here. I'm just going to keep the thumbnails fairly small as this was a corporate job that I photographed recently and these images haven't been released yet. Alright, so you can see I have a memory card plugged in there and the thumbnails for the images. You can see at the top there's only 2 options, so copy as DNG and copy, and that's because the images are still stored on a memory card and we need to be sure to move them to some sort of storage device before or as part of the inclusion into the catalog on Lightroom. We don't want to just move and add, because if we move, we're removing the images from the memory card, which means we're potentially affecting our safety and security of storage as a backup. So the memory card can be a backup in... So the memory card can be a backup just in the meantime until you have everything properly backed up in multiple destinations. So that one's grayed out. We can't actually select it. The other option that's grayed out that isn't selectable at the moment is add, and that's because we don't want to add the images purely as a catalog or add to the catalog within Lightroom just from the memory card, because if we then remove that memory card and format it and continue shooting on, we don't have them actually stored anywhere. So this is a bit of a safety net that Lightroom's implemented, where you have copy as DNG and copy as part of that import process into Lightroom, so that you are definitely copying those images to a storage destination as part of that import, so that you're not just working off the memory card and potentially losing images if you remove that memory card and format it and continue shooting. So it's a good safety net that's included there. So you can copy as DNG and copy. Copy as DNG, so that conversion to DNG is part of the process. Remember, we'll slow down the process a little bit. It's up to you whether you import your cards directly through Lightroom, or if you copy the data across to your storage device and then import separately, which was the first example that I showed you. It's up to you which way you go. You will find that the copy is DNG and copy, because you're doing 2 things at once. You're moving the images and you're also importing them. You may find that it slows down your system a little bit. So if you have time, not a problem. You're taking care of 2 jobs at once. But if you're in a bit of a hurry, then it may not be the best way to go. Of course, important to test depending on your specific system. So copy as DNG, you can still see we still have those 4 options: file handling, renaming, apply during import, and destination on the right hand side, and exactly the same with copy. The only difference there is we're not also converting it to a DNG. Alright, hope that all makes sense. So importing images, there's those 4 options at the top there, and you can import them either from your storage device once your images have been transferred from your memory card and safely backed up, or you can import directly from your memory card whilst also copying as a DNG or copying to your storage device. Again, be that whether it's an internal hard drive, external hard drive, or some other storage setup that you have. Remember, always have a minimum of 2 to 3 copies, preferably 3, so you can be sure to have a backup of everything. Alright, thanks again for stopping by. I hope this video has been helpful. And as always, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to pop them in the comments below, and look forward to seeing you next time. Take care.